Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really significant, something that comes up after the immediate crisis of addiction maybe passes.
Yeah, we're talking about dating
Yeah,
and relationships.
exactly. Navigating dating and relationships in, well, what feels like a brave new world, sobriety.
It really is. You
Mhm.
take away alcohol, which for so many people is, the ultimate social lubricant,
Right.
and you're forced to connect differently, authentically. That's a huge challenge.
And the sources we're drawing on today, they're pretty foundational, aren't they? We're looking at recovery texts, 12-step history, some memoirs, even clinical perspectives on addiction.
That's right. Foundational stuff. Because our mission here is to uh, sort of extract the principles, the emotional work that these texts say is essential for building real intimacy.
Intimacy without the chemical crutch, basically.
Precisely. Because, let's be honest, alcohol often gets used as a tool, right?
Yeah.
A way to cope with fear, self-doubt, social anxiety,
Mm.
all that stuff. Sobriety just rips that tool away. It forces you to actually confront those root issues. And you have to do that if you want authentic relationships.
Okay, so let's define the problem more clearly then. What's that baseline state, that internal landscape that alcohol is trying to manage?
Well, the clinical sources, they're quite specific. Addiction, yeah, it's its own illness,
Yeah.
but it tends to latch onto and magnify existing personality traits. Traits that are often, frankly, toxic for relationships.
Can you remind us of that list? It feels important to lay that groundwork.
Absolutely. Think of it like a cluster of characteristics often seen together. Things like extreme oversensitivity, a really low tolerance for frustration,
Okay.
persistent fear, needing instant ego gratification, being overly dependent on others.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster in dating.
It is. Add in an inability to handle disappointments, a deep lack of confidence, and just generally low self-esteem. That's the package.
Wow. So, if you walk into dating with all that baggage, you're not really looking for a partner, are you? It's more like you're looking for someone to fix you or save you.
Exactly. Alcohol didn't fix any of it. It just numbed the pain for a bit,
Mhm.
allowed for some pretending.
So, sobriety means facing that head on.
Correct.
Yeah.
The internal work has to come first. Otherwise, you just swap addictions, right?
Mhm.
Alcohol for maybe a codependent relationship that's just there to manage your own anxieties.
Okay, so let's dive into what dating actually looked like when those internal forces were, well, driving the bus. Alcohol as the false ally. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the false ally. It gives you this temporary hit, this feeling of confidence or power, but it's just masking all these insecurities we just talked about.
And there's a brain chemistry reason for that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Neurochemistry 101 for addiction. Alcohol floods the brain's reward system, dopamine release.
Mm.
It feels good.
Right.
It's like, hey, this is working. I'm charming.
But it's artificial.
Completely synthetic. It's not real confidence. It's just a chemical signal screaming, do this again.
And the brain doesn't just sit back and take that, does it? It tries to balance things out.
Exactly. It's smart in a way. It starts turning down the volume on its own natural reward system to compensate for the constant artificial flood. That's tolerance building up.
Which leads to needing more alcohol just to feel normal or even
Yeah.
just less bad.
Precisely. And the tragic part is emotionally, by the click of addiction, the person isn't even drinking for pleasure anymore. Not really. They're drinking desperately, often just to stop the shakes, the fear, the withdrawal. The reward centers are basically numb, fried.
And what about the decision-making part of the brain, the part you actually need for healthy relationships?
Prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets hit hard too. This is the bit responsible for foresight, emotional regulation, impulse control, adulting stuff.
Right. Essential for not messing up relationships.
Totally. And the source material shows that damage here leads directly to impulsive, erratic behavior, self-sabotage, often.
So in dating, that looks like, what? Sending that regrettable 3 a.m. text?
That, or maybe rushing into things way too fast with someone you barely know, or just completely failing to think about consequences down the line. It's desperation overriding rational thought.
That desperation, it leads to performing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One writer mentioned this comedic one-upmanship. What's that about?
It's like this aggressive energy almost, trying to feel powerful by putting others down, even jokingly, like
Yeah.
kicking over someone else's sandcastle just to feel big for a second.
Wow.
And the source said she did this because deep down she felt inhibited and intimidated by her partner, terrified he'd leave her. So the alcohol wasn't about connection at all. It was a lifeline against abandonment.
That deep fear of not being good enough, it leads somewhere else destructive too, right? This idea of seeking identity in the other person, emotional osmosis.
Yeah, emotional osmosis. It's a really insightful phrase from the sources.
Explain that. Why would someone think their partner holds the key to who they are?
It comes from that internal emptiness addiction creates. If you don't like yourself or trust yourself, you project all the good stuff, confidence, worldliness, whatever, onto your partner.
So you latch on.
Desperately.
Yeah.
One memoirist described it vividly clinging to her partner, hoping his good qualities would just sort of ooze into me. She actually believed he was capable of changing my life.
That's putting an impossible burden on the relationship
Yeah.
and the partner.
Totally flawed. The whole thing becomes about the addict's need to extract validation, to become someone else through the relationship. It's not about sharing, it's about taking.
And when the partner inevitably can't be the perfect savior, or when the addict's behavior gets too chaotic,
Boom. Relational breakdown. Guaranteed.
the sources are just full of examples of the resulting chaos, aren't they? And the guilt that follows.
Oh, yeah. Infidelity comes up, cheating, even in relationships described as, like, the ideal high school romance.
And just losing all inhibitions, boundary violations.
Right. Like the story, yeah, of flashing abroad as a 7-year-old man in lederhosen. It sounds almost funny now, maybe, but at the time.
It's a sign of things being completely off the rails.
Exactly. Markers of a deep emotional breakdown. You get that brief, chaotic rush of freedom, maybe, but it's immediately followed by this crushing shame, which, of
Which
course,
just makes you want to drink more and hide.
the cycle. Damage, shame, hide, repeat.
And that hiding leads to real isolation. Partners running out of patience, giving up.
Yeah, the sources talk about that, checking into hotels just to find peace and quiet, choosing loneliness over being badgered at home.
It's self-imposed isolation, but it probably doesn't feel that way.
Feels like the world is rejecting you. And the irony is, even trying to break that cycle by confessing, by trying to get rid of the secrets, even that can backfire. The weight is just too much sometimes.
That story about the friend rejecting the confession, that was brutal.
Yeah, it really was. The speaker shares all these secrets, infidelity, other stuff, feels this sense of release, like purged and hopeful.
And gets a letter back saying, essentially, I can't watch this anymore. I'm worried about you. Rejection.
Yeah. A bedroom door slammed in my face, as the source put it. It shows how the damage isn't just romantic. It poisons friendships, leaves you utterly alone.
So before you can even think about healthy, sober dating, that whole structure of fear and isolation needs to be torn down.
And completely dismantled. You have to build something new from the ground up.
Right. So active addiction, fear, self-centeredness, maybe arrogance covering it up. Recovery work, especially the 12 steps, seems like the absolute opposite of that. It starts with surrender, step 1.
Surrender, yeah. Step 1. And it's crucial to understand surrender isn't weakness. It's
Yes.
maybe the most powerful, honest thing a person can do. Admitting you're powerless over alcohol, that life's unmanageable.
It's just admitting reality.
For the first time, maybe ever.
Yeah.
Fully acknowledging the truth. And the sources point out, especially for people, particularly women maybe, who've spent years trying to control everything. This is huge, just admitting what is.
And it changes the approach from effort to willingness.
Strong willingness, yeah. That's a key distinction. The addicted mindset tackles problems, including finding love, with this intense, clenched fist effort. I must make this happen. I must control this.
Force it.
Force it. Recovery says no. You need to become sober, which isn't just not drinking that's being dry. Sober means being willing to learn, to practice new principles.
So dry is just white-knuckling it, but sober is an internal shift.
Exactly. Dry is stopping the substance but keeping the old thinking. Sobriety is a willingness to change internally. And when that willingness is there, when there's humility, sobriety can feel like a free gift, as the texts say. But it requires that shift away from sheer willpower.
That must feel like a massive relief, but also maybe scary, letting go of that control.
Terrifying. The ego hates losing control.
Yeah.
Which is why step 2, believing in a power greater than ourselves, is so vital. It takes the focus off the self.
And for people who come in maybe angry, cynical, that higher power doesn't have to be traditional God, right?
Not at all. The source material is really clear. For thousands, especially early on, the AA group itself acts as that higher power.
The community.
The community, the shared experience, that incredible atmosphere of love you find in meetings. It gives you belonging, hope, everything the isolated addict was missing.
So if the problem was this self-centered search for fulfillment in a substance,
Alcohol, yeah. Finite material.
2 points, that spiritual longing towards something else, something bigger.
Exactly. The obsession was maybe a spiritual yearning aimed at the wrong thing.
Oh.
The program offers a different target: connection over consumption, quality over quantity.
And that leads to this idea, the paradox of defeat.
hmm Realizing that hitting bottom, admitting defeat if you accept it the right way, need be no disaster. You had to own your limitations.
And that changes how you see time.
Yeah, instead of time running out, this frantic need to fix everything now,
Yeah.
you start to see time as a gift, room to grow. It unlocks that door of discouragement.
Okay, so steps 1 and 2 set the stage. Step 3 is making a decision.
Step 3 is where you actively turn away from that old way. Self will run riot.
What does self-will run riot look like in practice?
The sources say the whole problem was the misuse of willpower. Trying to bombard problems with sheer determination, trying to will your partner to change, will yourself to stop drinking, will yourself to feel confident.
Sounds exhausting. And it doesn't work.
It's utterly exhausting and totally ineffective. Step 3 is the decision, the concession, really, that your own thinking, your old ways are no longer to be trusted.
Wow. That's huge for dating.
Revolutionary means when those old impulses pop up, the neediness, the urge to control, the fear of saying no, you don't just react, you pause, you ask for help, for guidance, you turn over that desire to run the show.
So you replace fear-based reactions with principle-based actions.
That's the goal. That's the beginning of real change.
Okay, so if the first 3 steps build the foundation, the readiness. Step 4, the fearless moral inventory. Sounds like where the really hard work begins, especially for future relationships.
It's definitely where you roll up your sleeves. You can't share your whole self with someone if you're hiding big chunks of it from yourself, right?
Makes sense.
The inventory takes all that chaos we talked about from active addiction and helps you structure it, analyze it. It's not just listing bad deeds. It's about understanding why, uncovering your patterns. The sources say defective relationships have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes. You got to understand your part.
And the questions in the inventory, they seem designed to unlock exactly that, especially around relationships. Let's maybe touch on a few key ones.
Sure. Like, where is my life out of balance?
Yeah.
That gets you looking at where you put too much energy or not enough, maybe in seeking validation versus self-care.
Okay.
Then there's, in what ways have I denied my true feelings or even acted against them? That's huge for authenticity.
Yeah.
If you're always acting against your feelings to please someone else, you're presenting a false self. No intimacy there.
And the ones looking forward, like identifying patterns you don't want to repeat.
Crucial. And also, what am I responsible for? And what am I not responsible for? That one Crowin is basically ground zero for learning healthy boundaries, essential for any new relationship.
Boundaries, yeah. So you do this deep dive into yourself, then step 5 is sharing it.
Step 5, admitting to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. This is where vulnerability stops being theoretical and becomes an actual act. Sharing the real you, warts and all, with a trusted person, like a sponsor. That's the core of intimacy starting to form.
And the sources specifically mention tackling sexual issues in step 5. That seems incredibly relevant for anyone thinking about dating sober.
Hugely relevant. Step 5 is meant to be that safe place to talk about sexual issues without shame or judgment. Because in active addiction, sex often got tangled up with other needs.
Like needing validation or
Ex-
pleasing others.
Exactly. Or needing to get drugs. The sources talk about people realizing how far they strayed from their own inner ideal. Maybe having sex with people they didn't even like or feel attracted to because it felt required.
Or dealing with deep body image issues.
Yes, that too. Women hating our bodies, feeling undesirable, and how these insecurities could lead to putting themselves in really dangerous or degrading situations just to get the substance or to feel wanted, even for a moment.
So sharing that stuff, the things you're most ashamed of, in step 5. What does that do?
The sources describe it almost like a pressure valve releasing. Dammed up emotions of years break out of their confinement and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed.
Miraculously vanish, really?
Well, maybe not poof, gone forever, but the burden of the secret, the isolation, that lifts. It's transformative. You move from this tightly controlled, fearful persona to just being real. Flawed, maybe, but real. Ready for connection without defenses.
And that honesty about the past flows right into steps 8 and 9, right? Making amends, fixing past harms.
Exactly. Step 8 is making a list of people we'd harmed and becoming willing to make amends. Step 9 is actually doing it, wherever possible. It's not just about apologizing. It's about understanding your fundamental difficulties by looking at those past relationships.
But making amends isn't just barging in and saying sorry, is it? The sources talk about needing specific qualities.
Oh yeah, it requires real maturity. The text lists four. Good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence.
Let's break those down. Judgment and timing, why are they so key? Seems like the opposite of impulsive, drunken apologies.
Because the amends process isn't primarily for your relief, it's about the other person. Good judgment means figuring out if and how an amends should be made. Careful timing means not causing more harm. Like you don't drop a bombshell confession on someone right before a major life event.
Right. Sometimes direct amends aren't possible or wise.
Exactly. The sources say some amends have to be deferred, some might only be partial, less complete disclosures do them, or others more harm than good. The goal is healing, not reopening wounds unnecessarily.
Courage is pretty self-explanatory. But prudence, careful management, how does that relate to the apology itself?
Prudence helps avoid the wrong kind of apology. It keeps it clean, respectful. The sources warn against making excuses, and crucially, they warn against the ua culpa.
Huh. Oh, ua culpa. Love that. What does that sound like?
It's the classic non-apology. I'm sorry you felt hurt by what I said, or I apologize if my actions made you feel excluded. See the shift. It puts the focus on the other person's feelings rather than your actions.
Instead of just owning it.
Right. A proper step 9 amends, guided by prudence, is direct. I did X, that was wrong. I take responsibility for doing X, and I am truly sorry for the harm it caused. It's clean ownership. And that kind of accountability is absolutely fundamental if you want to build respectful, non-manipulative relationships going forward.
Okay, so the past has been examined, amends are underway. Now someone's actually stepping back into the dating world. Sober. This is where it gets real, day to day.
This is the ongoing practice. Sobriety isn't a graduation. It's a daily practice in all our affairs. And step 10, continuing to take personal inventory, is the tool for keeping things on track, especially relationships.
Step 10 is called the acid test, right?
Yeah, the acid test of this new life. Can you stay sober, stay emotionally balanced, live purposefully under all conditions? It's about catching yourself before you slip back into old patterns. Complacency is dangerous. Alcohol is subtle.
So how does that daily inventory work in a dating scenario? Let's say you're dating someone new, they cancel plans last minute. Old you might freak out.
Old you, absolutely. Instant fear of rejection, maybe assuming the worst, firing off an angry or needy text. Step 10 asks you to pause. Okay, what am I feeling? Fear, anger. Is this about them or my old abandonment stuff? Am I making assumptions?
So you spot the old pattern kicking in.
You spot it, admit when you're wrong, maybe wrong to jump to conclusions, and you try to get back to emotional balance before you respond. It prevents those impulsive reactions that wreck relationships.
And the sources stress that these principles aren't just for meetings or sponsors. You have to apply them at home with partners.
Yeah, show your family, your new partner, the same patience, tolerance, and understanding you'd give a struggling newcomer in the program.
Which sounds harder sometimes.
Often much harder. It's easy to be understanding in a meeting room. Less easy when your date is 20 minutes late and didn't call. Step 10 is about making sure that spiritual growth translates into your closest relationships. No silos.
This new way of being, it's then guided by step 11, seeking conscious contact.
Step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. It's about seeking guidance beyond your own ego.
And that contact doesn't have to be some mystical experience.
Not necessarily. The sources say it can be simple, as profound as conscious contact with another human being. Really listening, a genuine smile. Forgiveness in small moments. It replaces that constant mental wrestling with a quieter sense of direction.
So how do you know if a feeling about someone or a decision in dating is coming from that quieter guidance versus the old ego stuff like lust or neediness or that emotional osmosis thing?
That's the practice. The step suggests asking for inspiration, an intuitive thought, or a decision. And then this is key, relaxing, taking it easy, not struggling for the answer.
So the struggle is a sign of the old way.
Often, yes. The old way feels like mental wrestling, forcing, anxiety. The new guidance tends to feel calmer, quieter, more like a gentle knowing. If a dating decision feels rushed, desperate, full of fear, probably ego. If it feels grounded, respectful of yourself and the other person, could be intuition.
Okay, let's shift to the really practical stuff. Social situations, parties, dates, where booze is everywhere. That's a huge source of anxiety for newly sober people, right?
Massive, just
Yeah.
huge. You play out these scenarios in your head constantly. What will people say? Why aren't you drinking? Oh, come on, just one won't hurt. You build up all these prepared speeches,
But the reality is often different.
often completely different, yeah. It's almost funny. The sources point out that usually these questions come up less often than we expected. And our not drinking creates less of a stir than we feared it would.
People are mostly focused on themselves.
Pretty much. The spotlight you feel is mostly self-generated, coming from those old feelings of insecurity and self-consciousness. It's usually a huge relief to realize nobody cares that much about what's in your glass.
And this is but the vigilance has to stay up, right? Avoiding that first drink is paramount.
Absolutely non-negotiable.
Uh-huh.
100%. Your sobriety comes first. Always. That means being willing to do anything to avoid that drink.
Like literally running away.
If necessary, yes. Running out of a restaurant. Legging it out of the party, as one source puts it, even if it means risking raised eyebrows or disgruntled hosts.
And in dating, that means.
It means having the self-respect to leave immediately if a date gets weird or pushy about drinking, or if the situation just feels unsafe for your sobriety. No apologies needed. That commitment is self-respect in action.
So all this work, steps 1 through 11, practice daily, it leads to a fundamental change.
A complete internal transformation. The ability finally to accept my feelings, share about them with others, recognize that they are feelings, not facts, and then let them go.
Feelings aren't facts. That's powerful.
It breaks the cycle of reacting, shame, hiding. You learn to process emotions constructively.
Which allows for healthy connection, not codependent.
Exactly. The sources talk about gaining a feeling of belonging and a willingness to respond to life with my fellow man. You stop looking for a partner to complete you or fill a void. You build your own wholeness, your own self-worth within the recovery process, and then you can choose to share that whole life with someone.
Fear gets replaced by self-acceptance.
And self-acceptance is the only real starting point for genuine, lasting intimacy. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really maps out that journey, doesn't it? From using alcohol as this false power leading to that weird emotional osmosis and relationship wreckage.
Right, all the way to the radical honesty needed in the inventory, which lets you define and accept who you really are, your inner ideal.
The shift is huge.
Yeah.
Finding self-worth inside through the work, through the principles, which then makes real undefended connection possible when you date.
It's an internal rebuild, and it demands constantly choosing vulnerability, choosing principles over ego day by day. Real peace, the texts say, comes from trusting guidance beyond our own fear-based plans.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. We talked about how destructive behavior often stems from deep pain, loneliness, feeling worthless, anger. And the path to healing involves leaning into that pain, accepting it, not running.
It requires willingness to feel.
So if peace comes from reliance on something bigger, from accepting we don't have all the answers, maybe think about this. How might embracing honest doubt, Tennyson's phrase, quoted in the sources, how might embracing that in a new relationship actually be a greater act of faith than desperately seeking certainty?
That's interesting, instead of needing to know how it all turns out.
Right. How does saying, look, I don't know the future, I have my doubts, but I'm willing to be present and honest right now, how might that create more space for genuine love than pretending you've got it all figured out and trying to control everything? Something to consider.
A powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.